This is going to be a very quick tutorial just talking about project management within Resolve. One of the, I think, kind of weird things about how Resolve is set up by default is when I'm working, even if I have an external drive connected, so look here, I have an external drive connected. I would normally put all my footage and such on something like that. And that's particularly handy if you're working in a lab scenario like we have here at SMU in 107 or 108, or whatever coloring room you may be in, where I might work on a different computer from day to day because I'm working one day and then I finish and I come in the next day and somebody else might be on the computer I was on, so I want to be able to go to a different computer and pick up where I left off. So normally the way I would do that would be to store everything on my external drive. Now I can certainly store my footage on my external drive and work in Resolve that way, but the project itself gets saved on the local drive. And you may have noticed when you create a project and you go to save it, let's say I wanted to save this as, I get an option to put a name in here, but nothing about where it's going because it's going by default onto my local drive. If you had a home setup, there are ways to manage this a little differently, but here's what I recommend for in the labs. When I'm done working for the day, what I'm going to do is go here to Export Project under the File menu. And this is going to export my entire Resolve project. I can throw this onto my external drive. If I want to put it in a particular folder, I could do that and say, Resolve projects. Do something like that. It's not saving my video media, so I still need to know where that is. But it is going to save all the project information about how my sequence is edited together here, any coloring work I've done, any effects, audio, and basically anything I've done within Resolve. So I now have a copy of that on my external drive here, and there's the project. The important thing to note is I didn't just make my project now save there by default. I took a current snapshot of everything that's going on in the project right now and saved that. If I continue doing anything, so let's just say I was working on this shot and I make some little adjustment to my color grade here. Even if I hit save, I've now saved it back to the local drive. This copy that I have on my external drive has not updated, it hasn't changed. So I want this to be the sort of last thing I do before I leave for the day, is saving that to my external drive. Because if I save there and keep working, now that I've made some changes, I would actually need to export it again to get the current. Okay, so let's say that I now move on to another computer and I'm ready to work on my project. When you open up Resolve, even if you have your external drive plugged in, you won't see your project show up here. It's just going to show the local projects on that computer. So what I need to do is, actually I can open up any project, and then I'm going to go into Import Project. And by the way, the reason I need to open up a project is just if I'm in the project manager here and want to get to my new project, you'll notice this is grayed out. I can't do it directly out of here. I need to kind of get into the interface first. So now I'll go Import Project, and I can point it to where I put this. In this case, it was yelling at me because it had the same name as something else. Okay, and now what it's done is created a copy of that project on the local drives. Now if I go into my project manager, I now have that new project here and could open it up. Okay, so now I'm in the new project, which looks exactly the same as the old project. But the key thing to note here is even now, after I've transported it using my external drive onto a new computer and imported it back into Resolve, I'm still not actually working on that project. If I make some change here, I'll just again move this, and I go to save it, or I do save as, again it'll let me change the name but not change where it's going. What I've done is still just saved it on this copy on the local computer. If I look back at my Finder here, You'll notice it's now 3:24. That was done at 3:21. It still hasn't updated that, so at the end of the day working on this new computer, I'll have to do the same thing, export it. Maybe this time I'll say it's a different date, so I can put whatever today's date was that I did this on, and have another copy, and then that's the one I'm going to open next time. So you're basically only using that copy on your external drive to move it from one computer to another. I also like to do that when I leave for the day, even if I'm coming back to the same computer, just as a safety, as a backup, so if that computer crashes or dies or something, I still have all the work I did on my project on my external drive. So it's always useful as a backup, but I do want to make the point that it is never where you're actually working off of, the way that we have these labs set up. So you're always working on the local computer, and then at the end of the day, you need to export a copy of your project to go onto an external drive if you want to move it to another computer. And if you come in and are working on a computer that wasn't the last place you were working, you're going to need to re-import your project back onto that computer. And that's just kind of a quirk of the way the project management in here works. Hope that made sense.